Welcome to Empower Her Radio, the space for powerhouse women ready to step into their next level of abundance, purpose, and personal freedom. I'm Dr. Corey Wynn, a high performance coach, doctor of physical therapy, philanthropist, and business consultant. I help ambitious women align with their highest calling, expand their wealth and impact, and create a life that feels as good as it looks. If you're a high achieving woman who's built success yet finds yourself craving more alignment, more purpose, more ease, you're in the right place. Here, we bridge the gap between ambition and fulfillment. Through transformative conversations and proven strategies, you'll gain the courage to step into the fullest expression of you. Build a powerhouse business that aligns with your expertise and divine gifts, and lead your life, both personally and professionally, with unshakable confidence, worthiness, and compassion. This is about expansion, legacy, and owning your power unapologetically. You already have everything inside of you to create a life of unlimited possibility. It's time to unlock it. Welcome to your next level. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Empower Her Radio. I am so excited about our guest today, Susan Hensley. She's a transformational coach, speaker, and author of Art for Your Sanity. Through her work, she helps women reconnect with their inner wisdom and joy, especially during major life transitions, using the power of art journaling. Susan is also to take the TEDx stage with her talk, Dare to Be Bad, a bold message about how embracing imperfection fosters self-trust and unlocks creativity. But what really fascinates me is how there's actual neuroscience behind this. Susan teaches how creative expression, especially through art journaling, reduces stress, rewires the brain, and promotes well-being. If you've ever struggled with perfectionism, like me, stress, or feeling stuck in a transition, this conversation is for you. Susan, welcome to the show.
Oh, Corey, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, I would love to really just start kind of with your journey and how you ended up here with your transformational coach practice and just a little bit about your background.
Sure. Well, it's definitely not a straight line. Lots and lots of twists and turns. I view this as my third, if you will, major career with a few little sub changes in there as life happens. First career, about 11 years, was as a journalist in television news. My background, educational background, and master's degree was in communication and journalism, and that was terrific, and it fit great until we had our son. And I'd struggled for a few years with infertility and knew, because I wasn't willing to go through the treatments again. I'll be really honest. There was a big physical toll for any of your listeners who've done
Oh,
that,
absolutely. Absolutely.
and felt really, really grateful. And what happened at that career, it was a career I loved. And this is a theme for me, but all of a sudden it stopped fitting my life. And because at the time I was like anchoring 5 and 11 news, it meant I was working at 11:35 every night and all of that. So
Oh, yeah.
major pivot. We moved across country to have my son raised near family, and really realigned my values at that point, and those of my husband. So I took a corporate job. I was really fortunate and got sort of a foot in a door for a big major change, and was there 23 years. And once again, it was great. I had a lot of striving and perfectionistic tendencies, and we'll get to all of that. But what those tendencies can do is it can make you very successful in your job. You're not paying attention to the fact you're running yourself into the ground, but right? And trying to be all things for all people. But it did help me in that sense, right? I always like to be careful when I talk about it. And once again, a few years ago, I had taken up art journaling about 7 years ago, but it was really during the pandemic. I had a very big job and was working like 24/7. And I had planned on staying at that job at least another 5, 7 years. I loved it. I loved the people. And boy, did it stop fitting. It just, once again, it was like, I shifted within the hole or the peg or the lane where I'd been so happy. And I was doing a lot of coaching. I was an HR executive for a
Mhm.
large multinational company. And so coaching was a very natural offshoot.
Mhm.
And because I've done a lot of executive coaching, a lot of career coaching, leadership development. And I really took those skills and applied them, got a certification in life transitions, and really figured out how the art journaling,
Mhm.
which gave me such clear messages, fit into it. So
Mhm.
that's sort of the short but long version of the twists and turns.
Well, and I just want to highlight the courage for one that it had to have taken for you to make those life transitions, but also the fact that you followed your intuition and you recognized this no longer aligns with where I am, because so many of our listeners are in that space and they're not quite ready to give themselves permission yet to really embody this is no longer working for me. Now what's the next step? So just that gives our listeners some courage of, okay, she's been there, she's clearly successful and done this multiple times. Maybe I can take that small step out. Maybe I can do that as well.
So I have done it, and it is still super scary.
Yeah.
So I want to be really, really honest. It is important for all of us to be brave, because I think without being brave, we play too small and we don't come into our power and most authentic lives. But I will tell you, I use the word brave because there are moments it is scary. And that's the thing about a life transition, and why I love the fact that I've really been able to study and get into that, because there's these natural periods, right? There's an ending where there's grief, and you're trying to figure out like why something doesn't fit. Sometimes it happens to us, right? I want to be really clear that some endings are externally. It can be a relationship. We could lose a job, right? It can be something, a family, friendship, move. Others, so about 50% research shows of endings are externally driven, and about 50 are us. So we're all going to experience some of both in our lifetime, right? We're human. Then there's this big old messy middle. And that's where the amount of courage, because in our society and just as humans, we don't want to spend all that time going around in a circle
Right.
or
Right.
one step forward, two back, two sideways. And people can get really stuck there.
Mhm.
And I think that's where we could all use some help. And then
Mhm.
even the new beginning, we don't know what it's going to look like. And many times we're excited, but there are surprises. So there's these really distinct stages. And although, I mean, one of the reasons I'm so drawn to this type of work and coaching right now and using creativity and play and art journaling to help people is because it is so dang scary. But I passionately believe if we don't, particularly as women, if we aren't brave, society keeps dictating us. There's always another person to care for. I mean,
Yes.
seriously,
Yes,
always.
there is.
It's like my child is grown, leaves the house, and all of a sudden I turn around, I've got parents who are not doing as well as they were. It's like
Uh-huh.
how that literally happens at the same time was shocking. Or a spouse or my own issue, and you recognize, and I don't want to imply that's only women who do caregiving, but we do the majority of it. In our society, we care that. And honestly, I like that about myself. I see that as a strength, but I had to be really deliberate that when I switched from that corporate job, I put something else in its place that
Mhm.
was meaningful and deep. Because if I didn't, boy, did stuff start. It was like it magically fell apart. I had more time, and the people around me all needed more.
Mhm.
So
So starting to prioritize yourself first and create those boundaries and then allow yourself time or energy to put into other things. I love that.
yeah,
Because you're
beautifully
right.
said.
We
I
can
like the way
very
you said that.
quickly give all of ourselves and be overwhelmed and burned out if we're not paying attention to that.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, it feels good to be needed. and to be given, right? I want, there's this, it's like a double-edged sword. And yeah, if you really don't take the time with the boundary and with some practices, as much as I like love a spa day or media, but I'm talking about like practice where you really get in touch with yourself, meditation, journaling, art journaling, to dig sort of deeper and see those glimmers, like what is your soul asking you to do or create? Otherwise, we won't know, because you can
Right.
get caught up in busy, and busy can feel like, oh, my life's so full. Do you realize the busy may not be as fulfilling as we want?
Yes, absolutely. And I hear too, you talk about meditation and art journaling, and what that kind of surrounds us with is just allowing ourselves to be still. And me included, coming from healthcare background, we're very quick to go on to the next thing and go on to the next task and check the next box. And I'm sure it was like that for you in corporate, that it's a learned skill for art journaling. It's a learned skill for meditation. It's a learned skill to sit and be in the moment. Um, and I want to kind of go there a little bit next. You talk about the neuroscience of journalism, and my background in physical therapy is a neuro PT specialist.
Beautiful.
And so that piece of it, the neuroscience, fascinates me. So tell us all you can about that piece of it, rewiring beliefs and neuroplasticity.
So I would love to. So the big disclaimer is I got really lucky when I was writing my book about the amount of other great research and great books that came out. So I'm going to, for the purposes of our conversation, summarize, but I will shout out two books in particular. One is called Your Brain on Art, and it goes deep into all kinds of art, like just in a museum or listening to music, as well as creating, and what it does to our brains. It's beautifully written, academically researched, but also approachable.
Mm-hmm.
Terrific book. I cited in mine. The other book is Whole Brain Living by Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. And she's was a Harvard trained, or is a Harvard trained neuroanatomist. But what is so amazing about her story, and she's got a very famous uh, TED Talk, is she was a neuroanatomist and she had a stroke at age 37, and it shut down her left side of her brain. And she was completely in like bliss, 8 years to recovery, but it really refocused her research. So I want to just acknowledge those two areas, and then I'll tell you how this applies to art journaling. In our society, we really are taught to use the left side of our brain. It's logical, it's discerning, it helps us make those to-do lists and check things off. And it serves a terrific purpose. But for most of us, unless we really are drawn in the arts, and many people, and I was included in this, by about third grade, you're given a message that, your path is somewhere else. You've done something and you have been rewarded for it, and you're starting to get tracked down, another path. You build some of the Legos. Maybe you want to be an engineer, right? You
Yep.
do whatever it is, and it's well-meaning. I want to be really
Right.
clear. It's so well-meaning, but it starts to develop or it was called in my coaching program, success scripts. It's these
Ah,
well-meaning guidelines to how to live successfully. And most of them really use that left side of the brain in our culture. Meanwhile, the whole right hemisphere is where intuition, holistic thinking, right? It's where when we meditate or get really quiet and still, we connect in many ways to something much bigger, whether to our inner self, to nature. It's what happens, and it's why I think things like forest bathing, people say go out in nature.
uh-huh.
Nature immediately shoots us over there, as does, and why I liked art journaling, because it was a simple book, is it immediately shot me from using my left brain over, because I was playing with color, and I came at it with my 5-year-old artist. And the whole premise of the book and the course I teach, and even workshops, is you want to come at it with play, because play silences that inner critic. And it's that inner critic that many cases has driven the perfectionism, once again, in the left brain. So I'm not saying we never use our left brain. We've just, in many cases, overused it. And we're looking for some balance. And where it gets into the neuroplasticity is first we can get into ruts, right? Worry loops. I think anyone listening, it's really interesting research. We will think the same thoughts over and over, like our worries will be the same worry. And even if that worry doesn't get true, we find another worry that's very similar. And so it's like, it's almost, I think of it as like a rut, like a car, spinning its wheels and moving over to that right side of
That's such
the
a beautiful visual of anxiety and worries. Because that's all you are. You're just giving all of your energy to not moving forward or really any direction at all, backward or otherwise. But yeah, living in a rut. Sorry. That was a great point.
No, I love that you did that. And please jump in. Obviously, I'm passionate about this. What play and art and tapping into that child does is it almost shoots us across. It's like it gives you either that traction, but instead of being in that rut, what I think about is it's like one step to the sideways and you're just on a whole different road. And that's where you can open up that neuroplasticity, the ability to learn something new and to tap into something new. Because I think we don't recognize, I know a lot of the work I've done is helping me to see the loops I get into because they are so deeply worn. And that when I can introduce messy play, whether I'm scribbling with a crayon or collaging with the big glue stick or whatever, it really opens up that curiosity. And I have found play gets you being curious, which then can like tap up like self-compassion or where you can be sort of your own proud parent. And that the brain benefits of just even 10 minutes of that really, really powerful.
I hope you're loving this episode. I just want to pop in and share something that could completely transform the way you think about building your business, aligning your sales with your mission and vision, and scaling your impact both personally and professionally. I want to share a free training, The 4 Quadrants of Quantum Sales Growth, from the She Sells team. For entrepreneurs, sales professionals, and anyone building an empire who wants to sell in full alignment, attract high-level clients with ease, and create exponential growth without pressure or burnout. This isn't about outdated sales tactics. It's about energetically aligning with your next level of success and stepping into a business that feels abundant, effortless, and scalable. If you're ready to uplevel your sales strategy, expand your reach, and quantum leap your results, grab your free copy now at www.elisearcher.com/CoreyWin. Now, let's get back to the episode. Well, and I love this discussion for a lot of reasons. So my background as a physical therapist is very much on that logical side. If this, then this, if not this, then this. And I've been so blessed throughout my career to work alongside occupational therapists who tend to be the opposite. They tend to be the creative thinkers and move and step outside of this box. But you talked about perfectionism. And I think a lot of people, a lot of women I know, I would have identified myself this way. They're scared of art journaling or they're scared of the creativity because of the past perfectionism. You go to the museum or you have a friend who's very artistically talented, and then you look at your paper. Like, I'm not one to typically go to wine and design because it's not something I want to put on my wall when I'm done. But where I'm going with this is the giving yourself grace, the allowing the space to follow your intuition. So what have you seen in your own journey, but also with your clients in how that's changed their trajectory, how that's opened their life?
So what I've seen, I'll just share an opening exercise and I'll tell you exactly why it works so well. So in a workshop, and got a video where I do like 4 exercises, but the opening exercise, if everyone grabbed 2 crayons. So I've yet to meet an adult holding 2 crayons that thinks they're about to do a masterpiece. So the one of the key tips is because
Love
otherwise,
that.
if I gave someone like a really fancy oil brush or a beautiful brush with people's perfectionistic tendencies would start to drive up because we all have them.
Mhm.
And the key is an adult with 2 crayons, right? And so they only have 2. They've chosen to have a big fishbowl. They don't even have like the fancy 64 pack to get to choose the shades. So exercise starts with you have 2 crayons and you have a relatively small piece of paper, like 5x7 journal size.
Mhm.
For 3 minutes, I have everyone spread out if they're in an in-person workshop. If you're doing it at home, it's just you. You have 3 minutes. I put on in a workshop, and I'm sure I will not be sued for any sort of royalty for saying this. I put on Taylor Swift, Shake It Off. It's the
There you
radio
go. I
version's
love
3 minutes.
it.
And so you think about the words, upbeat, it's about shaking it off. I tell the instruction is very simple. You have until this song ends, 3 minutes, to fill this one sheet of paper, 5x7, with something, but you're to fill it. I don't care with what, no one is going to look at it. So in person, all spread out, left to yourself, and you could put on whatever song you like, but really write about 3 minutes. And I say, go. Song ends, crayons down. No one shows it to anyone. There's a trash can in the other room. If you want to throw it away, you can throw it away, right? But in debriefing it and saying, how do you feel? Every person who's ever got back to me said, fun, light. I didn't want to stop. Silly, but in a good way, like a kid, like this. It's amazing. And why the exercise works, since we're talking about what's happening in the brain, is it's highly constrained.
Mhm.
2 crayons, 3 minutes, 1 piece of paper, no one says. So when you put all of those constraints on us, we actually get really creative. That's what's funny versus here's a blank canvas and some fancy paints create. That makes us freeze. But in constraints, particularly in this setting, and it's just so interesting how we can sort of get that inner art critic, right? That's the
Mhm.
perfectionist to step aside because I'll spend time working with clients and then in workshops, and I cover this in the online train about how important it is that everything about art journaling in this case isn't about producing a final piece. You have to
Mhm.
do it exactly like you would your written journal. I have
Uh-huh.
never showed anyone my written journal. I can't even read my own handwriting most days, right? So it's for you. It's about
Uh-huh.
process, but it's easy for us to get that inner critic. And we have lots of exercises I try and introduce with clients about first recognizing the inner critic, asking the inner critic to step aside. If we're working with the kids' play date analogy, kids are harsh. Kids are like, I don't want to play with you. And so I
Uh-huh.
will joke with people that if you're tapping into your 5-year-old artist, you're like, inner critic, you're over there, my time. So I find once people sort of playfully start to work with that voice, it helps it. Because what you don't want is that really harsh voice we have in our head, and then you're like fighting it and all this
Uh-huh.
harshness. I think that's where a little lightness and compassion for that internal fight, it actually helps to diffuse it.
I love that. And it resonates so heavily with me. I think back to being in elementary school for creative writing. And
Mm.
that was so overwhelming to me because there were no parameters. It's like, write about whatever you want to write about. And it was like, what am I supposed to do? But then as soon as you gave me a prompt, I could move on after that. I love
Yeah.
that so much.
Yeah, that's a great analogy that the prompt, because to your point too, it's like when a horse that's always been in a corral is an open gate, they don't walk through, right?
Uh-huh.
Like,
Uh-huh.
and yes, there is, whereas if you guide them, they get out and it's like, woohoo. And I think we all need that because we are so used to our, the confines of our thinking, if you will.
Yeah, and giving ourselves permission to step through the gate. I talk with women all the time who have stayed in their lane and have done everything that either their family or society or they themselves have told them that they should be doing, and invested in myself enough with coaching that sometimes you just need that person to give you permission to then allow you to give yourself that permission. Would you say the
Yeah.
same?
Oh my gosh, you are absolutely, absolutely right. It's almost like we have blinders, like we can't even envision doing it. And then all of a sudden, a coach, I once had a therapist say something like, get up and leave the room. And it was like, my head like exploded. It's like, I can't do that. I have to keep fighting. Or something, you know? And it was so funny because she said it again. And it's like, it was inconceivable that that would be effective in that moment. And yet it was that permission that sort of shifted the
Mhm.
whole way we think. And that's where we get stuck in our own loops and in our own patterns, and where whether it's a friend who pushes you, right? Whether it's a therapist, a coach, a book, that openness to not just say no. You know, when I work one-on-one with clients, and sometimes it'll come up in a workshop, it's very easy for us to just reject things. No,
Mhm.
that won't work for me. That doesn't work in this relationship. That doesn't work here. This is why, this is why, this is why, this is why.
Mhm.
And I try and do an exercise that's really what if?
Mhm.
Like, what if? Like, what if this didn't happen? Just to start to imagine, because it can be really hard to imagine, and people will so quickly, and once again, it's a learned behavior, it's a rut.
Right.
And so I want to be careful not to blame someone, but to break that where you do think differently.
Well, and I maybe you can share this with your clients as well, but I had a mentor just very lovingly and kindly ask me, but very pointedly say, and how is that belief system serving you?
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
I remember just sitting there thinking, well, it's not. It's
Right.
absolutely, but no one had ever asked me that question. And I love the curiosity that you have as a coach, because so often it's just allowing that space for your clients to answer that question for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think as a coach, what you recognize is all the clients have the answers within them, but it's unlocking them, right? Because
Mhm.
they know somewhere deep, deep down, or can find it, but it's unlocking all of the, whether it's defenses, getting out of the ruts, the, what I called earlier, the success scripts of what could this look like? And then sometimes values work really helps, and trying to have clients really describe what a value looks like. Because you and I, say integrity, right? We may both have a value around integrity, but it could look very different for each of us,
Mhm.
right? It's the word doesn't, I think we have a lot of miscommunication sometime
Mhm.
around that, where you actually describe, this is how it shows up in my life. This is how I want to align to it. And then examining, is it serving you in that way? Right? Because
Right.
sometimes we do need to redefine what it is, but clients know it. It's just you're really helping people unlock it. And that's where the art, the scribbling art, the art journaling, what are the symbols? What are the colors? Like to have them go through and really sort of ask those questions and see what messages come through over time, because that right hemisphere, it is that holistic, more intuitive space.
Mhm. Do you find that any of your clients are initially resistant to it just because they're so left brain, they're so logical, they're so in the doing
Yeah.
versus the allowing and the following the intuition?
So yes, so the nice thing is there are a bunch of tools trained coaches can use, and so I try and meet the client where they are.
Mhm.
I ended up writing the book on art journaling, and then have done the workshops, because I felt like it was a tool that so helped me super low barrier. I mean, it's one of those
Right.
tools you can just do yourself. You don't
Right.
need a coach. Like I said, book, you can read it. I have a PDF free on the website. I love it because at this life stage, and I think anyone who works in this space, you want to be of service. And I don't
Right.
want to act like this is magic. It's there's science and there's fun. I stumbled onto it. And so it's sharing it. So the art journaling, I view it as a tool, but it's really fast in shooting you to play and curiosity in the right hemisphere. So it's what I call sort of that fast movement over. There are absolutely clients who that's not going to work for them. And instead, we're going to want to use a whole series of other tools, like actual question and assessment about what's happening in these areas of your life and where are we right, where you're using really the left brain to analyze until they feel more comfortable for some of the other things. So yeah, I try to really meet people where they are because the goal is to help and
Oh,
serve
of course.
here.
Of course. Well, and on that path of service, talk to us about daring to be bad.
So it is so it's interesting because every day, or not every day, a couple times a year, every day sounds extreme. I am surprised by a story I tell myself and then how quickly I realized that was a silly story. So I was on a panel of a women's leadership conference in September in the Bay Area of California. And uh, one of the lead facilitator had done a TEDx talk. And a lot of people asked me because of the background in journalism, I do a lot of speaking. Had I ever done that? I said, no, I've never applied. I've never even thought about it. I don't have. And I would say to people, it's like, I don't feel like I have anything original to say. So, I mean, very interesting and negative. It's like I had eliminated something completely, acted like it wasn't of interest, and then said, I have nothing to say. So at the table, when I wasn't on the panel, a woman, I published my book several months earlier, was saying she wanted to publish it. And how do you? I said, gosh, this is what you do. You get up every morning, write badly for 10 minutes for 30 days. She goes, what? I said, yeah, do not edit, just write as badly as you can. And then at the end of 30 days, and I said this, categorize, see what you have. But I said, do it badly. And she starts repeating it around the room, as the day goes on, right? It's a full day women's leadership conference. And I made that comment, sort of pithy, and she sort of kept repeating it. And then it was funny because at the very end of the day, it's like, what are you going to do as a result of this? And because so many people had asked me, or a few, let's be clear, like a couple people that day had asked me about it, I thought, you know what, I'm going to apply and I will see if I have something. So that's a little bit how it was born. Now, the truth is, everything in the book, Art for Your Sanity, is about not producing perfect art and making glorious messes. So it's interesting to see how it goes and goes and goes. The talk is really about unhooking from perfectionism through allowing yourself to make a mess or to be bad. And I do have one line that I think is so important because I'm not talking about incompetence in a job. This is 10 minutes of play. But I think we can't, and I think for women particularly, because good girl is such, as a little child, you hear that a lot. And a lot of people are raised, to be good. The like dare to be bad or just like be bad is so delightfully rebellious tasting. Like people sort of get a
Yeah.
little giddy. It's like,
Yeah.
ooh. And that's what I found is once again, but that's playful. It's not like go out and smash a window. It's like 10 minutes, sing off key. But it's liberating to say in my whole day that I've blocked out and I'm going to be all things and get all this done. And, it's really fun to say, I'm just going to allow some time for mess.
Well, and
And
it's so important too, because how many of us who, are recovering perfectionists or identify that way still
yeah,
get nothing done because of the mistakes that we make and then start over again and start over again and
Yes.
start over again. So being able to be bad or send an email with a mistake or post a social media asset that has typos or blunder a talk at some point is also incredibly authentic and draws people to you, because even if any of us are striving for that perfectionism, it's not possible.
No.
So having people that you look up to or that you hire as a coach also recognize the importance of being bad, making mistakes, letting go of perfectionism. It's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I can be in this space with this person. That's wonderful.
Yeah. I love the way you just said, because we all feel that, right? And for as much as I know about, like I do, I try to call myself a recovering perfectionist. It says it's still a battle, right?
Yeah.
It's the default mode in certain aspects of my life. It's not in a lot. And I can recognize that, like, there's a lot of things like you just clear like 51%. It's like, great.
Uh-huh.
But I think, once again, it's that early thing that we're taught, give everything your all, do the best you can, that gets misapplied,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And that's what's hard, is when we use those mantras that should only serve in certain cases where you're striving for mastery.
Right.
But, I do not need mastery in so many areas of my life. And life's just much more fun to not be driving yourself to that standard.
Well, and allowing yourself to be in that space helps the next generation. I have a 9-year-old, and having her see me make mistakes or say I'm sorry when I'm screwed up, or try and model this, I don't want to say messy life, but you know, we have times that are messy or things don't go our way, and see how she watches me keep going or watches me handle it differently. Whereas in my younger life, I would have scrapped everything and started all over. So it's just, I think we're also working in our different avenues to break down those barriers for the next generation of women to come in and be
Absolutely.
successful.
Yeah. You said something and it really struck me, because it's a word I work with a lot, which is messy. Somehow we're taught messy isn't okay,
Mhm.
or that messy is to be avoided, or messy is only this temporary thing, when I think there's so much joy in embracing, because life is inherently messy,
Right.
right? And
Controlled chaos all the time.
it is, exactly. And that's the thing, is just like when you're doing something bad, I'm not talking about like just crazy incompetence, right? If a person has a job, you've got some level of mastery, but it's also, I think we're recognizing that the perfect mom, perfect outfit. And this is the tricky thing of social media. I think there's something inauthentic, that a person can be doing things and it can be very messy. This can be working here, but this is not working as well right now. And that we're all working through controlled chaos every day, and feeling good about that, the messiness. I think that's where a lot of the richness comes through,
Mhm.
and keeps it from feeling, antiseptic. And, we've all been in, like, you know, hospitals can be chaotic, but, when everything's very clean and orderly, you don't get like the warm, fuzzy vibe.
Right. I was going to say the authentic, relatable
Yeah.
human being that has so much more joy to give and space in their life for other things than if we were all just to focus on this perfect image of what
Yeah.
we. Well, I want to make sure everybody knows where to get your book and how to follow you. Where can we do that?
Sure. So, thanks for asking. Easiest place is my website. It's just Susan-Hensley.com. Books there, online training, video. Like I said, there's a free downloadable PDF that tells you how to get started in art journaling. I don't send out a bunch of emails, so you know that if you do give me your, that's, in the shoulds, it's like, I should do something. I've got this huge list, and it's like, you know, but So you don't get a bunch of emails from me. If you do get it, you're safe. And it's just accessible. There's contact me if you have questions. So I've tried to make that a non-stressful place for folks.
I love that. Is there anything that we haven't talked about or any lasting thoughts you want to give our audience today?
Well, it's been a great conversation. I think we've covered it, but I do like to leave people with the thought because so many members of our audience, I think, are so busy. Like just 10 minutes of play, it's something. If you've got younger child at home, Play-Doh, just 10 minutes of like that play or mess, and then just see how you feel. Super freeing because I don't think people need another to do, but if you can incorporate that little bit of play, it's not a to do.
Well, and especially for our audience, and like I have children, they always want to play. And I've realized as I've gotten older, I don't, I guess I didn't play very much as a kid, or my parents didn't play with me. So the imaginative play has always been a big challenge for me. So this is such a great place to start. Just, I love Play-Doh. My daughter loves slime. Woo.
Yeah, I
I
love
don't,
Play-Doh
I can't
too.
handle
Love
slime, but I love Play-Doh.
it.
Well, this has been absolutely lovely. Thank you so much for being on today.
Oh, thank you. It's been a delight.
As we close out today's episode, I want to leave you with this. Your next level is already within you. If you're feeling that pull for more clarity, more alignment, and more courage to step fully into who you're meant to be, this is your invitation to take the next step. Whether you're an entrepreneur ready to scale or a woman standing at the edge of something bigger, the path forward starts with trusting your desires, owning your worth, and leading with your inner knowing. This is exactly what I offer. Private VIP coaching, and where I guide women inside the 10K Club and 50K Club through consulting with She Sells and Superhuman Selling to help you gain clarity, step into aligned action, and build a life and business that reflects your highest vision. If you're ready to explore what's next, let's have a conversation. Book a free call now at www.corywin.com/free call. I can't wait to connect with you. Talk soon.